Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It's the first weekday of the month, Monday the 2nd of October 2017, and with the time about 10 minutes before the start of the working day, let's have a look at what's making the news. So there's two real stories coming through in the headlines today. Let's pause on those for a minute and have a look at what's behind those in the news. First up, Monarch, the UK's fifth largest airline has ceased trading and all flights have been cancelled. This is due to last-ditch talks with the Civil Aviation Authority about renewing its licence for selling package holidays has failed. Now, Monarch employs about 2,500 people and carried 6.3 million passengers last year, predominantly on package holidays. And so what's going to happen to all of those flyers and travellers which are still currently overabroad with the airline? Well, the government is promising the country's biggest ever peacetime repatriation, saying it's coordinating efforts to bring home about 110,000 customers which are currently overseas. Next up, these definitely will not be in the headlines because this is very much a breaking story. This comes from across the pond in America. At least 2 people are dead and 24 injured in a mass shooting in Las Vegas. A gunman opened fire at an open-air country music festival in Mandalay Bay Hotel on the country's strip. Now, police say the suspect is down and they do not believe there are any more attackers, but this is still very much a breaking story. Have a look at the latest international news feeds if you want to find out more and the latest on that, particularly in the next few hours. Let's look in focus then at the main story today, which comes from Catalan and Spain. The regional leader of Catalan says the Spanish region deserves the right to become independent. This is after Sunday's unofficial referendum result, in which 90% of people backed independence. This is on about 42.3% turnout, reportedly 42.3% turnout. Now, that's not the key story from that referendum, that unofficial referendum result. What has been taken the papers, and as you can see here in the Times and the Telegraph, is the violence that happened as a result of that unofficial referendum. So the Spanish government declared the referendum illegal and sent in the police and riot police, and the violence which ensued there saw 800 people, around about 850 people injured in clashes over the referendum. Now, the Telegraph has gone a different angle. They've criticised the EU reaction to the violence as a result of this unofficial referendum, saying it was the EU has been conspicuously silent on the brutal police attacks. It shows the EU is in crisis amid a lack of condemnation from Brussels. Catalan has urged the EU to take notice of the results, saying it's time for a unilateral declaration of independence. There's certainly more in that story. It will be developing over the next few days and probably in the next few hours, so keep a look on the news feeds for that as well. One more story then, this comes from the I newspaper, but it's also in pretty much all the papers as well today. Backlash against Boris is what the I is saying, and this is reporting that the conference mood, because it's the Conservative Party conference at the moment up in Manchester, is against the Foreign Secretary, has moved against the Foreign Secretary for his perceived disloyalty. Now, what disloyalty? Well, it's predominantly been on Brexit negotiations and what's happening in terms of government policy on the Brexit negotiations. What the government and many MPs and many politicians are calling is interference from Boris Johnson on how the talks should be going. So he said a lot about, you remember, the transition period being no longer than 2 years, and also he gave his 4,000-word Telegraph speech a few weeks ago, which caused so many ripples through government. Many Conservative MPs and politicians are effectively saying to Boris, shut up or stand down, and also saying similarly of Theresa May that Boris needs to be brought back into the fold and tightened the reins a little bit on him, or she will need to stand down as he is undermining her premiership too much. Now, the key problem in terms of conference that Theresa May is trying to woo younger voters with policy announcements at party conference, particularly in her own speech. She's already announced a freeze on tuition fees for students and also an expansion of subsidies for first-time home buyers. But the fear is that all of that will be overshadowed by infighting in the Tory party unless discipline is instilled by the leader. That's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest we're doing on Core Politics on our Facebook page and on Twitter over here. We're live from the Conservative Party conference in Manchester tomorrow, so look forward to that. I'll be there with the team. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic start to your week.